Move aside Geneva, there's a new diplomatic hotspot in town. War stretching from the Middle East to Africa, a world beset by endless cycles of conflict, and at the heart of these complex web of lies and diplomacies, one tiny nation is trying to mediate. A friend to the United States, Iran, China, and almost any other mover and shaker you can think of, Qatar has emerged as the global capital of diplomacy. But how did Doha transform itself into the world's go-to mediator? And why is it trying to resolve some of the planet's most intractable conflicts, including the recent flare-up between Israel, US and Iran? Well, let's find out. At 11,500 square kilometers, Qatar isn't the biggest, baddest kid in the neighborhood where the East and the West play their games. But it has street smarts. In fact, Qatar's diplomatic clout is the result of decade-long planning, staggering wealth from its natural gas reserves that gave the Al Tahini monarch the means to pursue influence well beyond its borders. Rather than amassing military might, Qatar doubled down on soft power, building relationships across regional and ideological divides. Today we analyze some key elements of Qatar's approach to dealing with the world. In fact, these includes the topmost is hosting international conferences where Doha regularly brings together rivals in pursuit of dialogue. Then comes maintaining open channels. Qatar is rare in the region for its willingness to speak to all parties, even those shunned by the West, be it Taliban or Hamas. Then comes developing soft power. State-backed media, humanitarian aid, and investments in Western institutions build Qatari goodwill, though time and again critics have questioned the real motives. In fact, Qatar's strategy has ultimately paid off. It is trusted or at least tolerated as a broker both by the great powers and their adversary throughout the Middle East, Africa and beyond. Qatar's diplomatic activism is not theoretical anymore. It has played out in real time across multiple conflicts. First comes the US-Israel-Iran conflict. Amid escalating hostilities, including direct missile exchange and an attack on US airbase in Qatar, Doha's diplomats moved swiftly. Qatar's Prime Minister engaged both Iranian and US officials, eventually persuading Iran to accept a ceasefire proposal designed to halt further escalation with Israel. First comes energy interdependency. Sharing world's largest natural gas fields with Iran, Qatar had both influence and a vested interest in regional stability. Second, and perhaps the most important, credibility with all parties. While Western allied, Qatar's open lines to Iran, including economic, political and security ties, enabled dialogue even at the moments of acute mistrust. The mediation not only stopped the 12-day war, but offered a blueprint for future crisis management in a volatile region. Then second comes the Gaza and the Israel-Hamas crisis. For years, Doha has hosted political leadership of Hamas and sometimes in concert with Egypt and the US has brokered a ceasefire. Then comes hostage exchanges and humanitarian aid deliveries. Despite criticism from Israel and others, Qatar has persisted, contended that dialogue, not isolation, is the path to peace. Even as negotiations stall and criticism mounts, Qatar remains central to efforts for a long-term Gaza truce. Then comes US-Taliban talks. Qatar hosted the Taliban's first overseas office, making it a key intermediary in US plans to exit Afghanistan. The historic 2020 agreement for US withdrawal was signed in Doha, with Qatari officials felicitating the negotiations and later assisting with evacuation during the chaotic Kabul airport crisis. Then comes its role in key mediation in Africa. Qatar's reach is global, there's no denying. In fact, in recent months, it hosted mediation between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Two countries have been logged in intermediate conflict. Qatar also played a pivotal role in Sudan, going beyond peace talks to sponsor reconstruction. Doha even facilitated agreements between Russia and Ukraine to exchange displaced children, underscoring its credibility outside the Gulf region. Now the biggest question is, and perhaps the most important, what underpins Qatar's success as a diplomatic power broker? Doha audaciously maintains working relations across divides, from Iran to the US and Israel forging a niche as a neutral ground. It won't be wrong to say that Qatar checkbook diplomacy, which includes donations, humanitarian relief, and strategic investment, often paved the way for most difficult of political deals. But in the end, it all works out. From hosting Hamas to Taliban officials, Qatar never closes the door to dialogue, even if it matters enduring short-term diplomatic backlash. Qatar's role is not without controversy or limits. Critics point to an underlying contradiction. While it celebrates open dialogue and mediation, its funding or hosting of groups accused of extremism raises questions about motives and outcomes. In fact, at the same time, the pace of outcomes of diplomatic efforts can be frustratingly slow, as demonstrated by the repeated delays in ceasefire agreement in Gaza. But can you really blame the mediator? Despite these constraints, Qatar's stature as a diplomatic powerhouse seems secure. In a global order increasingly defined by fragmentation and distrust, the world requires states willing to engage the difficult actors, offer channels for negotiations, and invest both resources and prestige in the cause of peace. Well, in sum, Qatari diplomacy story is a testament to the power of small states to wield outsized influence, turning gas wealth, geography, and depth negotiation into both political capital and at times genuine steps towards conflict resolution.